Okay, we are going to go through a little bit about what you need to know for romance scams. Just a disclaimer before we start, the information is for this information is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. It doesn't form an attorney-client relationship between you and our presenters or the Center for Elder Law and Justice. If you do need our services for any type of attorney-client relationship, that contact information will be provided at the end. All right, a little bit of a roadmap where we're going to be today. We will first discuss what is a romance scam, online versus offline scams, some red flags to look for, some tips to avoid romance scammers, and some things that you can do if you feel that you have already been scammed to mitigate the damage and stop it from happening again. First, what is a romance scam? It's exactly that, a scammer that pretends to have a romantic interest in the subject. They will develop a romantic relationship or what the subject thinks is a romantic relationship pretty quickly, much more quickly than in a legitimate relationship. And then they will start asking for financial favors, either money, gift cards, wire transfers, cryptocurrency. And the important thing is this can happen online or offline. Offline is becoming less common, but it still happens. So we're going to discuss both of them. Online romance scams, the scammer might meet the subject through dating apps, through social media, through other places where people will connect online. COVID has exacerbated these types of scams because people are lonely. They've been isolated for sometimes as long as 2 years in their homes. They may not be able to see their loved ones physically as often as they like. They've gotten used to using technology to communicate with people. And with that comes the opportunity for them to be taken advantage of. And they also suffer from pandemic-related anxiety. So they may not be as on the lookout for scams as they would normally be because a lot of their mental energy is taken up with COVID-related anxiety with, am I going to get sick? Do I need to be vaccinated? Where do I need to wear a mask? Things like that can really just wear you down, and scammers will take full advantage of that. Online romance scammers are hesitant to meet in person. They create these online personas. They may use stock footage to create pictures of people that seem legitimate. More and more often, we're seeing scammers that actually hire actors to do video chats in order to make it seem like you are having a relationship with a real person, but that person is just adopting the persona that the scammer has created. And they will request money through gift cards, cryptocurrency, money orders, wire transfers, anything that cannot be easily traced and anything that cannot be easily reversed once it's sent. They won't ask you for checks because you can stop those. They may not ask you for credit card information because you can dispute those charges. But once you bought a $100 Target gift card and sent it to them, then, or given them the numbers off of it so that they can use it, then that's very hard to get rid of. Offline romance scams do still happen. People are more trusting of people who they meet offline in real life. These are your more traditional grifters that establish trust with that in-person relationship. They may establish a romantic relationship for the purpose of scamming someone, or they may exploit a pre-existing relationship. They may decide that they need, a friend or romantic interest money and may use the pretense of a romantic relationship to get it. These types of scammers will take from their victims by asking to move in together, asking to have access to bank accounts, asking their victims to co-sign loans or put them on the deed to their houses. They can get access to because they have physical in-person access to the subject. We're going to go over some relationship red flags. Some of these are appropriate in online and offline romance scams. The first and by far the most important is love bombing. The scammer will shower you with attention, with flattery, you know, tell you that, you know, they've never felt this way about anyone, that they knew from the minute you started talking that, you know, you were the one for them. They will move the relationship along much faster than any legitimate relationship, and they will pay much more attention to the subject. Why do they do that? It's because it works. People love to be flattered. People like to be wanted. And, you know, if they see that from someone or they hear that from someone, and they're also suffering from loneliness, they may be isolated, they, you know, may have lost, you know, some loved ones to the pandemic, then they're going to take comfort in that, in the fact that someone is suddenly paying so much attention to them. Scammers may make early mention of financial difficulty. They may do this at first without asking for money in order to groom their victim. And they will always claim financial hardships that aren't their fault. They'll, you know, mention in passing that they had a job loss, or, you know, that they'd love to leave this country, but they can't afford visa fees, or that, you know, they're ill and they need to go to the hospital again. They will claim these things to establish the relationship with the victim and to get the victim primed to give them money when they ask for it. Another red flag is asking for secrecy or trying to cut the subject off from friends and family. This is because while the subject has a vested interest, the subject believes that they're in love with this persona, the subject's friends and family do not have that interest. They are interested in making sure that the subject stays safe. They may be able to recognize these signs of scams before the subject does. They may be a little less trusting of someone who has met their loved one online and is immediately claiming to be their soulmate. And scammers know this. They don't want you mentioning the relationship to your friends and family because they don't want to be intercepted in that way. And another red flag is asking for money in specific forms that are difficult or impossible to recover. Gift cards, like we mentioned, wire transfers. This includes Western Union and MoneyGram, which were actually the targets of class action lawsuits because of how easy they made it previously for scammers to request money via these platforms. Cash transfer apps. Another one that's becoming very common is cryptocurrency. And they'll use guilt to pressure the subject into financial assistance. You know, they'll tell them that, you know, I love you so much, but, you know, you're not doing this for me. Or, you know, like, why wouldn't you want to help me? You know, why wouldn't you want to pay for my visa to come visit you? Why wouldn't you want to help me get out of the hospital? Anything to make the subject feel like they have to give them this money in order for the relationship to continue. Online red flags are a refusal to meet the person in person. Like we said, recently, online scammers have added the video chat element. So someone may think their relationship is legitimate because they've chatted with this person online. In reality, they're chatting with an actor who's taking on a persona that the scammer has created for them. Another red flag is asking for intimate pictures or videos, especially before the subject has met them in person. And we'll get to why that's problematic later. In offline romance scams, asking to live together without a clear delineation of who will pay for expenses, making some excuses like, you know, my landlord kicked me out, or, you know, I need to quarantine away from my roommate who has COVID, you know, can I stay a couple days? And then all of a sudden it balloons into someone basically living off the subject in their home. And asking to co-sign loans, lines of credits, or signing over deeds to houses. These are things that are very serious. They're things that a legitimate romantic partner might not ask you for right away. And they're things that once you do them, it's very difficult to undo them. So these are some things that should give you pause if you are with someone who's asking for them. All right, some tips to avoid romance scammers. They want control above all else. If you were looking at some of the relationship red flags and some of the notes about what scams look like and thinking to yourself that it sounds a whole lot like domestic abuse relationships, that's because it does. In both types of relationships, they want control, and control is how they get what they want. In a scammer's case, they want control because when they have control, then they can manipulate you into giving them your money. So understand that they want to have control. And if it seems like someone is trying to control a little too much of your life or trying to be involved in a little too much of your life, that should give you some pause. Another is to proceed with caution when dating online. I'm not going to say never to do it because in today's world, that is just unrealistic. Most people do meet their partners online through dating apps and social media. But verify the person's identity and their image. You can use Google to do a reverse image search to see if the image they've sent you is one that is actually of them, or if it's one that is of a stock photo that they may have bought or gotten for free from stock footage companies. You can verify their identity with Google search as well. It is uncommon in this day and age for someone to have absolutely no internet presence. They may not be on every social media app and they may not appear everywhere on the internet, but someone is going to appear somewhere. They will have commented on something. They will have owned real estate and have their name in the public record. There is most likely going to be something. So if you Google them and they just don't exist, then that's a red flag. And obviously being wary of people who show too much interest too fast. This is that whole love bombing thing. And it can be difficult to recognize at first because people want to be wanted. And if someone is showering them with all this attention, you may not think to yourself, this could be a scammer. You may just think to yourself, wow, this person really is into me. And, not to reveal so much personal information with someone you haven't met in person. If they're asking for a lot of personal information, you should really stop and ask yourself why they need it or why they want it. And to tell a trusted friend or family member about people you meet online. That goes to the scammers' want for secrecy. If you have friends and family members who are looking out for you, then they may notice these signs before you do. You may be too far into the situation to notice it, but they're going to notice that this person is, asking where you live and asking personal questions. This person, refuses to meet in person, but, tells you that they're the love of your life. If you have even just one family member or friend that's looking out for you, that can be a really great protection against falling for romance scams because they are not interested in the relationship so much as they are interested in keeping you safe. All right, do not co-sign loans even if the individual promises to repay. Once you've co-signed a loan, you have taken on full responsibility for that debt. And even if they sign a written side agreement to repay you in case they default, that has no force against the lender. If you walk into, ABC Credit Union and you co-sign a car loan and they default on it the next day, you can't go to the bank and say, well, they promised me that they wouldn't default on it. You're still responsible. And you're the one the bank's going to go after because you're the one who's not a scammer and has assets to pay it. Be careful about letting someone move in or stay with you. This is for offline romance scams. If someone does want to move in and you feel like it's a little too fast, you should establish some clear boundaries about who's going to pay for what expenses. In a legitimate relationship, people will be willing to have this conversation. And if they're not willing to have that conversation, you need to stop and ask yourself why. Along the same vein, be aware of anyone who asks to be added to the deed to your home. That they may tell you it's just a piece of paper. It is not. That gives them a legal ownership interest that is very difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. So, you need to stop and ask yourself why these people are asking for it and what else they might need in, if they are legitimate, how else could you get them what they need without leaving yourself open to a scam? All right, say you have taken all of these precautions, you've been careful, you've looked out for yourself, your friends and family are looking out for you, you've still been scammed. Now what do you do? First and foremost, you need to remember that it is not your fault. And that's because a lot of people feel shame and embarrassment having been taken advantage of by any scam. They feel a special shame and embarrassment being taken advantage of by a romance scam because they feel that they're legitimately in love, but the person they're in love with doesn't really exist. It's a persona that's been created by the scammer. And this shame and embarrassment can lead people to not report it. It can lead people to not involve their friends and family. And that only allows the scamming to continue. So first and foremost, it is not your fault. It is all the scammer's fault. And, just keep telling yourself that. It's easier said than done, but it will help you as far as unraveling the scam and undoing some of the damage that's been done. If you suspect there's a scam, the first thing you should do is cease communication with that individual. The more you communicate with them, the more you leave yourself open to suffering more consequences from being scammed. You also want to immediately put together a list of any financial information that they might have about you or any things that they may have asked you for in terms of gift cards, crypto, wire transfers, Cash App transfers. That's going to help you if you file a police report or if you decide to get some relief against them civilly, which we'll talk about in a little bit. All right. And, these are, again, some more lists of money and financial benefits that you may have provided to them that you want to make sure that you're putting together to let someone know so that they can help you. If they live with you, consider asking them to leave. You may have to pursue legal ejectment, which requires some proof, and it may require going to court. But if someone is taking serious advantage of you, then you don't want them in your house with access to you anymore. In any case, online or offline, be prepared for the scammer to intensify their efforts once you cut off communication. It's because they want that control. And when you cut off communication, then that is when their control is at the absolute lowest. And that's when they're going to do anything to try and get it back. They will use guilt, they will use shame, they will use intimidation, they may threaten violence, they may threaten to retaliate against you. If you have provided them with intimate images or videos, they may threaten to release them to your friends and family. Be aware that this is an additional crime in New York State for them to do. It's called revenge porn. And that's another thing that you can file a police report in order to, establish a criminal record for that person who's done it. So just be prepared that they will intensify their efforts once you stop communicating, and it may get worse than before it gets better. And most importantly, ask for help. The Center for Elder Law and Justice has resources that can assist you. Adult Protective Services, we'll be talking in a few minutes, has resources that can help you as well. CELJ can assist you with running credit reports and putting credit freezes on, which can help you dispute accounts that you didn't open or accounts that you didn't authorize someone to use. It can prevent new accounts from being opened. We can assist with reporting identity theft to government authorities. The authorities who take these reports will use them to establish patterns, and then they will be able to go after rings of romance scammers who follow similar patterns with the eventual goal of bringing them to justice and getting some restitution for the victims. We also provide education regarding additional steps to take to prevent further damage. We give presentations like this very often. We have written resources. We can walk you through how to unsubscribe from unsolicited mail and how to block robocalls or block calls you don't know. We can do a lot of things to help you protect yourself from being scammed again. Another thing to consider is filing a police report. A lot of people are hesitant to do this because they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they maybe don't want to involve law enforcement because they don't think it will do any good. They may have had unfavorable interactions with the police and are not willing to involve them in their lives again. But it's important to at least consider this for an option. Police reports are necessary to pursue victim compensation funds, and there are funds available to compensate for some of the losses that victims of romance scams suffer financially. If the scammer is local or they're known to you, the police report could result in their arrest or restitution. And if they're not known or they're not local, filing a police report establishes a record that this scam has happened to you. And it's additional proof that you can give to the credit bureau when you're disputing an account. It's also proof that you can use if you are ever able to claim money from class actions against organizations like the ones that happened with MoneyGram and like the ones that happened with Western Union, where people actually got a lot of money back that they had sent through these channels because they had proof that they had sent these and they were scammed. Police reports are this proof. So you may want to consider filing one, even if you don't think it will benefit you. The Center for Elder Law and Justice has our free senior legal advice helpline for New Yorkers age 55 and over, which provides brief answers to legal questions and referrals for if your legal issue requires more than brief legal services. You can call us about scams. You can call us about any non-criminal area of law. And you can call through Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 to reach an attorney right away. Outside of those hours, you can leave a voice message or email the helpline's email address, and a licensed attorney will respond to you generally within 2 to 3 business days. We also have our regular intake information, which I will get to in just a minute. CELJ has a legal risk detector. This is a web-based legal health checkup that you can use to screen for common legal issues. If you are at risk for issues with your housing, issues with access to healthcare, issues with consumer problems or abuse, this app will identify whether you're at risk for those, and then it will offer you a referral to the Center for Elder Law and Justice to get assistance with those issues. And finally, our senior financial safety tool, which is like the legal risk detector, except it's used specifically to detect your risk for financial exploitation. And you can take the self-assessment, you can answer a few questions, and then it will tell you whether you are at risk for various types of financial exploitation. It will give you some information about how you can help yourself to avoid financial exploitation or to fix it if it's already happened. And it will also offer you the opportunity, if you want to speak to someone at the Center for Elder Law about what we can do to assist you as well. And finally, we have our 3 main offices, our office downtown Buffalo, our Chautauqua County office in Dunkirk, and our Niagara County office in Lockport, that you can reach us for assistance with scams and assistance with many other non-criminal areas of law, such as housing, consumer protection, healthcare advocacy, and more. We're always available at elderjusticeny.org, and we are also available to take full scope cases through our 3 main offices. And now I'm going to turn it over to Eric Mattoon from Adult Protective Services to give their perspective on romance scams.
Thank you, Erin. Again, this is Eric Mattoon. I'm a supervisor in Adult Protective Services. So Adult Protective Services, we provide service to adults over the age of 18 who are in need of protection from actual or threatened harm. And this is due to their inability to protect their own essential needs or meet their own essential needs. We utilize a least restrictive approach, and we honor people's rights to self-determination. The majority of the cases that we investigate are related to financial exploitation or financial mismanagement. However, over the past 2 years, we've noticed a huge uptick in romance scams as a result of the pandemic. When we're investigating the romance scams, similar to what Erin had said, what we found is that a lot of the techniques that these scammers are using are similar to those used by domestic violence perpetrators. Scammers and perpetrators try to exert power and control over their victim. They prey on their emotional vulnerabilities, and they attempt to isolate their victims. This isolation obviously flourished with the pandemic. So most of the scam referrals that we receive here in adult protection come from banks or other financial institutions. Occasionally, we'll have retail outlets that reach out to us, places who issue gift cards or money orders who may see a red flag because someone's coming in to buy numerous gift cards or send money orders to an undisclosed person. On occasion, friends and family will reach out to us to express concerns about these romance scams. We get a wide range of referrals. Clients who have been victimized by this are from young to old, male to female, persons with cognitive impairments, and those with no impairments at all. So recently, we've closed out some cases, and I'll give you some examples here. We had a married woman in her 60s who was sending money, approximately $70,000, to a younger man that she believed was living in California. We were assigned to the case and went out to investigate. And her primary concern with us is that we were going to alert her husband to this. Now, she and her husband had a joint account, and she was concerned that her husband would learn of this affair that she was having and all the funds that were being transferred. We tried to explain to her that the money was being sent to someone who wasn't in fact living in California. Come to find out, it was somebody that was overseas on the internet. But nonetheless, her primary concern was with her husband finding this out, not that the money had been missing. We had another individual, a man in his 70s, who's employed as a medical professional. He was going through a divorce, and he befriended this woman or scammer who posed as a woman who was a research scientist. He ended up diverting over $100,000 to her. The difficulty came when he realized that through the course of this divorce, these were marital assets that he was sending to this scammer. So he's going to be accountable for that money in the course of the divorce, which is going to create issues for him. We had a woman in her late 70s whose husband had recently passed away, and she befriended some scammers on Facebook out of loneliness. So she was sending thousands of dollars, ended up losing her home to this, utilities were behind. She had gone so far as to send explicit photos, and these scammers were using these photos to blackmail her for additional money. We were fortunate to be able to engage some of her family members who helped to safeguard her finances and ensure that this wasn't going to happen any further. So of those three examples, none of those cases were open for ongoing services in adult protection. And the reason for that is that each of these folks had full mental capacity to make their own decisions, albeit decisions that might not be the best. But we did guide them to other avenues to hopefully assist with this. One of the remarkable features that we find with these scams is that the scammers tailor fit to the needs of their victim. So whether it's through internet profiles or just conversations with the victim, they change their pitch over time to extort additional money. So what can you expect if you make a referral to us at Adult Protective Services? Here in Erie County, we have an intake team of 5 folks who take all the calls of concern that come through. Those calls are processed within a 3-day window. So during those 3 days, our intake team is reaching out to as many collaterals as possible. This could be doctors, banks, police agencies, friends, family, anyone that we can get a hold of to give us additional information on this particular referral. If they decide that the case should be moved to an assessment, that case goes to a caseworker who will conduct a visit within 3 business days of the original referral call, anywhere in Erie County. When that caseworker goes out to the home, they're going to do what we call a global assessment. They're going into every room of the home. They're interviewing every person that's in that home to gather as much information as possible. Caseworkers will typically have bank report information or additional information regarding these scams. And we'll work with our clients to contact the police and file these reports and alert additional agencies if needed. Many times our intake office is reaching out to the Federal Trade Commission, the Attorney General's office, and sometimes the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Line to report these scams to them as well. So in order for a case to be moved for ongoing services from our assessment phase, we use three basic criteria, and those are reduced capacity for self-care. Does this person have a mental or physical impairment that inhibits their ability to take care of their own needs? Are they at risk of harm, or do they have an unmet essential need? If they're participating in these scams and that's preventing them from paying their monthly mortgage, rent, utilities, food, then we have an unmet need that we're going to need to address. And then lastly, the criteria, do they have anyone else that's willing and able to assist them? We're going to try to reach out to spouses, family members, attorneys, financial advisors, anyone who could assist with mitigating the risk involved in these scams. And if we can find that person and they are able and capable of assisting the client, we will not be providing ongoing adult protective services. So if we do open a case for ongoing services, some of the interventions that we offer here are representative payee service, where we manage the client's Social Security funds. We'll ensure that their basic needs are being met and that no funds, hopefully no funds, are going to the scammers. We can assist with the appointment of a power of attorney. If the person has capacity to understand what a power of attorney is, we will typically direct them to an attorney or at times Center for Elder Law and Justice to assist with appointing a power of attorney. That power of attorney can navigate community bank accounts and ensure that funds are safeguarded. In some of the more severe situations, we can petition to be appointed as a guardian of property for these individuals. An Article 81 guardianship is appointed by a Supreme Court judge who determines that the individual lacks capacity to make their own decisions. Adult Protective Services can be appointed as this guardian as an agency of last resort. Typically, they're going to look to family or somebody else to act as that guardian first. So the unfortunate part with all of these investigations, it's very seldom that we're able to recoup any of the funds that have been lost. In most cases, we're able to stop the bleed from the bank accounts and sometimes direct the client to crime victim boards for some compensation. And this is very difficult, especially with our older clients who may be on a fixed income and aren't employed. Once these funds are lost, it's going to be very hard for them to recuperate that money over time. An individual who's working and gainfully employed, they can hopefully rebuild some of the assets that have been lost, provided they don't continue to participate in this. So if any of you have a concern or just would like to reach out to our department to discuss a potential scam concern, we can be reached at 858-6877. We're also here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So I would encourage you to call us with any concerns.
Thank you very much, Eric. If Erin and Eric are both finished up with the presentation portion, then we will stay open here for just a moment to see if there are any questions. So if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them into the question and answers box that should be available to you towards the bottom of your screen, or just into the general chat if that's what you see as well. We've got one question here coming in. What if an older adult refuses to stop talking to the scammer? Can anything be done?
As long as that person has capacity and is not under a legal guardianship order, they can speak with whomever they choose. This is one of the biggest problems that we run into with friends and family who contact our office about scams, is that they can't get the victim to stop talking to this person. And they can try to convince them. There are things that they can do to try and, point out that, this person has asked for a couple $1,000s and hasn't actually materialized in real life, or that this person is harming them in other ways. But you can't necessarily take away someone's freedom to associate with whomever they choose. So that's one thing that we cannot do, is we can't force someone to stop talking to someone.
Correct. Some of the tactics that we'll try to employ is changing their phone number, changing their email address, but somehow or another, these scammers always seem to find the new phone number, or the victim may reach out to the scammer again.
Our second question is in the same neighborhood. What is the best way to support someone who does not believe that they are being scammed? How do you help a family member who sees this happening to a loved one?
I would say to stay in that person's life. Don't necessarily cut them off. This isn't really a situation where an intervention might be appropriate in that regard. Just make sure that you're there for them as a resource, because there may come a time when they are willing to realize that this is a scam. And at that point, they're going to need a support circle. The scammer's goal is to take away that support circle and to cut them off from people who care about them. So the main thing I would say is keep lines of communication open. You don't have to necessarily support what's going on, and you can make that opinion known, but then also make sure that you make it known that, you love your family member, you're going to love them no matter what. You're not going to enable them, but you're always there for them if they want to talk to you.